I met a lot of interesting people over the years when I've done time, whether it been in the California Department of Corruptions and Rehumiliation or in the BOP you with a whole bunch of time, BOP, federal system. And when I was at Florence, I met this gentleman right here. I actually met him in the sweat lodge. First time I walked into that sweat lodge, I didn't know what to expect. It was pitch dark in there. It was hot as hell. And you were forced just to, like, see yourself in a whole different way. And me and this man, we became good friends, worked in the Unicor factory together. He's a real one. He's been around a long time. He's an older, wise one. Always relied on him for a lot of positive information, a lot of information, period. Especially to hear them good old stories from the old days. He's also a bank robber. He's actually escaped from the California Department of Corruptions and Rehumiliation. At one point, he did time in the California state. He's also done time in the Arizona state and in the feds. So I'm going to introduce to you my big brother right here, Mr. Dennis Mickle. How you doing, Dennis?
Pretty good. Hey, people.
So Dennis, you've been around a long time. You've seen a lot of stuff. And one of the things is you said you started out doing your time in the California state system, right?
Yeah, the Youth Authority and then a B number under the Indeterminate Sentencing Act.
All right,
was,
so you
a 2-5 to life running wild.
Damn, so you were able to get out from that. So you went into YA originally. So you must have been young.
Yeah, I was, and it was my first offense. With burglary, residential burglary, and they threw me away.
Yeah. So what was your time like in the CDC? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Some of the highlights that you had from being in the CDC.
They were at a crossroads with the Determinate Sentencing Act and readjusting all these people that were doing lives on 1 to 15 or 15 to life, and because the parole board used to handle the punishment. And like they didn't prosecute in these smaller counties that were lowly populated, but they had prisons there. They didn't prosecute the homicides. The parole board would just take care of it. They'd go off your disciplinary. And I got to see how bad it must have been all through the 50s and 60s. It was pretty rough. There was a lot more respect though, and a lot more regard for other people's spaces and dignity back then though than there is now. I consider myself fortunate to have seen it, because nowadays the institutions in this country are just off the hook. There's nothing you can count on them about them.
So what year did you first go into YA?
That would have been 1974.
All right, so you were in the CDC. By that time, you ended up in the CDC. What, in the late 70s, early 80s?
76.
Yeah, so that's a long time ago, man. That was back when the shit was rocking and rolling, huh?
Yeah, it was a strange experience, I'll tell you that. I didn't let it bend me. My heart was always out on the street, but I still had to be exactly like everybody else to fit in.
So what was it like? So when people talk about these different cars, everybody has a car. It's not really called the Native American car. You guys just refer to each other as Chief, right?
Yeah. Ever since that movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I remember the word Chief took off. Yeah. Before that, we were just Indians.
And you were a part of the American Indian Movement, AIM, right?
Yeah, AIM.
AIM, yeah. So what was that like? Was that it was, because I've read a little bit about it. I don't know like a whole lot about it. just from what you told me and everything. But that was kind of like almost like a militant movement to stop the U.S. from mining all those uranium resources and everything on reservation land. Isn't that pretty much how it started?
No, it started with a bunch of Sioux boys and Chippewa boys in the Twin Cities, Minnesota. And the police were pretty brutal on the drunk Indians that were slumming down there. And so they were following the police around. They had learned these things from the Black Panthers, how to administrate and all that. And they were following the police around and stuff like that. And, trying to help other natives, come up there, quit drinking, straighten up, work and stuff like that. And then they were having problems. These Sioux boys were having problems out on their reservation on Ogallala, Pine Ridge, with the chairman. And so the American Indian movement, the Chippewa and the Sioux guys, and there was other nations went out there, and they ended up occupying a little town called Wounded Knee. And really it was over the chairman not addressing an issue of people beating these Indians to death down in White Clay that went down there to buy liquor because that was the closest liquor, and, then they ran against him in an election, and the chairman just kind of threw all the ballots away and declared himself. So it was a battle between the existing Indian government and the new office that had really been elected. And, it turned into an occupation. And that drew my attention, a young teenager. So I got involved with that. And plus, a lot of these guys I'm related to, the Chippewa guys, which we were called Ojibwe, and a lot of the guys I had the honor of meeting, the Sioux guys and stuff like that. I met quite a few of these men that occupied that town. Nowadays, it would be called terrorism, going against the American government. But it's back then it was appropriate.
So you're Chippewa. That's who your people are.
Yeah, I'm a Minnesota Chippewa from White Earth Indian Reservation.
So how did you end up?
Too, can you tell?
Yeah, you got a little bit of pale skin in you, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty common though these days, Since all the growth of major cities and everything, especially like out there in like Minnesota and like here in Oklahoma, where I'm staying. I'm not from here, but
yeah.
When I moved here, I noticed there was a lot of native culture here.
Well, it used to all be one Indian territory.
Yeah, they're kind of taking some of the land back a little bit, though.
Well, they've gathered back some rights. That guy got off death row, because he was still in the footprint of his territory. And, so now he's getting prosecuted, or he has been prosecuted for homicide in the federal courts. He'll never get out, but the federal courts will never, no matter how heinous the crime, put a Native American on death row, because the highest court in the land would have to give them some sorts of certiorari, and they'd be able to challenge the right that the Americans have out in sovereign Indian nations enforcing their Major Crimes Act, because the law was never ratified. They just threw it in one day. Oh, we don't have to vote on this. This is Indians. And that would put in question their jurisdiction. And so they leave it alone. You know how the see no evil, speak no evil, what is it, hear no evil? That's what our highest court in the land is. They decide what's politically fantastic or what they want to do at the time, depending on their views. Like, can a Girl Scout be in the Boy Scouts? Can another child of one gender think he's something else and go into another bathroom? Silly stuff like that. They won't address the true problems this nation has if it's not popular or if it's against their authority.
So you said the chairman threw out some votes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's according to my end,
Yeah.
And we're their own.
We're told that kind of thing don't happen. As you know, that was kind of big news in this last election, people throwing ballots away. Would you believe it?
Well, yeah, they added more than they threw away. There's a couple of states that had more people voting than lived in the state.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it?
It's not fair, you know. Cheating an election is as bad as assassinating somebody that's voted in office. That's like saying your vote doesn't count there either, you know. And they're not going to do anything about it.
It just totally invalidates the whole voting system to begin with, you know.
I can't vote. You know, I know some of you guys can, but I've just been all over the place. It would take a lifetime to get my felonies in 3 different states and the feds, you know, tapped down so I could go to the voting ballot.
That's right. You're in the state of Arizona right now, and they don't allow former felons to vote even off of probation, right?
They have an angle in, but then I would have to address felonies in Nevada, California, and the feds. You know, I'm what I am. I did it to myself, and that's what I'll always be. You know, I'm retired now. I have decided, because you know, you and I watched everything go to dirt when we were up there in Florence, Colorado.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather be keeping my stuff in a shopping cart, living under a bridge, than ever go back to jail for anything. You know, and besides making promises to myself, which, you know, I can't break or rationalize, I promise people that I love and care, you know, that I will stay free.
And that word is your bond, because I did the same thing. And that's what my driving force is, to stay free, is the fact that I made, you know, and I remember telling you about it when my mother was dying, remember? I mean, we all sweat for her that one day, remember?
Yeah, I'd lost both my parents just recently then too, when we were talking about that.
Yeah, so it's you know, on her departure out of this world, she told me, you know, don't go back. Just walk the straight and narrow no matter what it takes. And I mean, I've been tested quite a few times, believe me. I've been tested, man. And
well,
yeah.
you are highly affiliated, you know, and you're well respected. And I'm sure opportunities to come by you, you know, but you know, you learn how to say no, and most people respect that, you know, because of your age and your wisdom, who you are.
Right.
And that's the same for me too. You know, they don't even come ask me to go do anything anymore. You know, words kind of got out.
Yeah, it was an honor, honestly, you know, on your part, on others. Like you remember Swallow? He's still in there, huh?
I just talked to him last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good man there, really good man.
Yeah, he is. But you guys welcomed me in to that sacred circle, and that Chanupa, and that being in the belly of Mother Earth like that. And I always appreciated that, man. And I always looked forward to those days that I can get out there, you know, fasting the whole morning, just going in there and sweating and just getting it all out of you. Have a lot of respect for the ways, for the ways, for your people's ways. And, you know, and the one thing is that I learned is that a lot of what a lot of people were saying, indigenous people, they like to use that term out here, is how the raw deal has really affected them. And me and you saw it firsthand, if you remember. They were trying to completely take that tobacco away and just leave you stuck with Kinnick. Remember that?
Yeah, that's sad. And really, something like that was completely unnecessary. Same with coming after our colors for our headbands, you know, because our colors mean things. And for thousands of years, they've meant the different directions, you know, the sky and the earth and stuff like that. And here now we can't have blue because of this gang or red because of that gang. Well, those aren't our gangs, you know.
Right.
That's the Americans' gangs.
Right.
And you know, and then they come after the tobacco. And then they, even with the Kinnickinnick, you're not allowed to smoke it in the building. Well, you're not, you know, the smoking laws refer to tobacco. And we were left a loophole, but they just didn't want to follow it down there. You know, I think it's CFR 551. You know, we were left a loophole so that we could have tobacco. Steve made it into the courts with that. Swallow did. And he didn't really win much. You know, but he tried.
If you remember, I was on that legal team, man. I was definitely pushing that stuff with you guys. If you remember, I told him, man. I said, attack on one is an attack on all. I learned that philosophy from my father, being Teamsters and everything. And an attack on one is an attack on all. Just because they're trying to take something from the native sacred circle, what's to stop them from taking something from Santeria, or taking something from Jewish services, or taking anything that's not Christian, you know? It seemed that Cavalier was, if you remember Cavalier, he was on a mission, kind of like a heathen hunting mission to get rid of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I've kind of raised pretty traditional. You know, my mother's the native in my family. So I've learned by my other elders to admire my enemies because of their skill and their ability.
Right.
But those chaplains, Henderson and Cavalier, I couldn't admire them for anything.
No, me neither.
They were, yeah, we were all in there when we had that big meeting with them, and you spoke up too.
Right.
I remember that, and you can't put them in their place. You know, their place is to hurt everybody but themselves, and then they don't even like themselves, their own people. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I was in there. You know, they had the Moorish Science Temple. I went and spoke up for them. I used to attend Moorish Science Temple as well. People thought I was crazy. You know, It's like I got invited to all these different circles. And these different, you know, for being a volunteer spokesperson in that chapel over there in the religious services. Spoke up for Santeria, spoke up for, you know, Jay Burkholder. Remember when he wanted to start practicing his Enochian, Luciferian stuff? I spoke up for him. You know, I did a lot for a lot of different people. They were trying to get rid of Wicca in there. I helped them get that. The Odinists have problems. I helped them with that. You know, it's people would, like the chaplain was always like, well, what religion are you today, Mr. Rutherford? And I'm like, I don't know. I should be asking you that question since your religion is like a mixture of about 30 different pagan belief systems. You know?
Yeah.
He didn't like that one. You know
and
what I'm saying?
They butchered the primary religion to fit it in.
Exactly.
You know?
So, I mean, yeah, we fought some battles, man. And like I said, I've told a lot of people, and a lot of people couldn't believe it, but, you know, whether it was northern chiefs or southern chiefs, I had respect for my mom, man. And shit, had a couple of them in my cellies. Dude who was Crow from the Crow Nation up there as my cellie for a little while. Yeah. But yeah, man. So, you actually got out a little bit before your time, didn't you?
Yeah, thanks to Trump. Remember the way they calculated 47 days out of 54?
Right.
And we were only getting 47 days, but the law says 54.
Yeah.
Trump told them that, you know, I don't want to hear it. These guys get their 54 days. And then we had the Second Chance Act. And I don't know who put that in. Maybe Obama.
No, the Second Chance Act was actually George W. Bush.
Okay, and they hadn't implemented it. Everybody shuffled their feet saying to do it. Trump made them do it. You know, we were in the middle of a lockdown, and the counselor came to the door, and I thought I had 2 more years to go. And he told me, Mickle, April 19th. You know, this is like January. I thought, man, I'm finally at the end of this one. That was a 15. That one hurt.
15 years you did in there, right?
Hey, bro, I've spent 32 years of my life behind bars. I just turned 63. And after 64, it's downhill. I'll start saying I've had more of my life in the free world. And it's been for silly stuff. You know how, you know, any kind of felony will send you to prison nowadays. You know, so first time and the last time was for something real. First time was for robbery, and this last time was. But in the meantime, it was just for like beating up a cop, having a gun, stuff like that.
So you give credit to Donald Trump for actually you getting out sooner.
Oh yeah. You know, I don't care about any particular party. What I care about is who's good for all of us, for the republic, you know, not for the democracy. We are a democracy, but we are a republic.
Exactly. We're a republic. People seem to forget that always.
You know, a democracy would be like two wolves and a sheep voting for what's for dinner. You know,
right.
A republic has some filters in it. The guy wasn't he wasn't a politician, you know, he was a show off. But I thought maybe this guy will be all right for us when he said that you can't give me money and expect me to do what you want me to do if I get elected. He says, I know the game. I've been buying politicians my whole life.
Right.
He sure did well. I wish they had actually counted the votes. You know, I wish they hadn't molested that system. Then we'd still have 4 more years. We'd still be 4 more years out of good living, you know. And right now something's coming down the pipe, and I don't like it.
So you don't like me. You don't really have much good to say about Biden, though, do you?
No, he was asked one time by one of the founders of the American Indian movement publicly. He said, will you abide by agreements and treaties that the American Indians have with the American government? And he wouldn't answer the question. And so he says, I'll take that as a no. One of the Belcourt brothers asked him that. So I didn't like him for that. You know, I mean, he could have at least lied to us like the rest of the white men. You know? But he wouldn't do it, you know.
Well, at least he gave you that much, right? But me and you, like I said, we were in the thick of the system during the 90s when he came out with his Super Predators Tough on Crime bill that he was one of the main authors of.
First to ruin us, you know.
Yeah.
He backed up the truth in sentencing law. You know, for decades, people would complain, hey, you gave this guy 20 years and he's out here in 3. You know, well, having those options of somebody getting out earlier by improving themselves, you know, by being able to take advantage of the skills to change the way they live, you know, to learn things, they don't have any of that anymore. But what they would do is they'd start pumping the crime up. So the politicians would say, well, he was out in 3 on 20. Let's call it 40 now and make it mandatory. And then Biden was one of the crew that says, well, they'll just do 85%. And they didn't push down any of the overcompensations that they put on anything. And now you and I both know that there are sentences handed out for things that don't really even harm anybody. The American government just doesn't like them. But there are sentences handed out that the human body cannot endure. And then they haven't harmed a hair on anybody's head, you know. And there's Arizona states like this, you know. There's lots of states that compensated when there was earlier out, you know, early release programs that compensated by adding more time. And then when they went to 85%, they didn't lower those mandatory minimums. That's what the feds are about. They hand out a lot of time.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, you got dudes that are in there for conspiring to sell 3 ecstasy pills doing 10 years. You know?
Hey, I met an inner city guy, a young white man there when I was in the walls in Florence, Colorado.
Yeah.
And he had 50 crack rocks in his pocket, and he was doing life with 150. You know,
A white dude, huh?
yeah.